It is with a heavy heart that I have suspended my campaign to become MP of Waterloo during this election cycle. We were unsuccessful in gathering the 250 founding party members needed to officially create the Electoral Reform Party before the election deadline. However, the support I received over the course of my campaign was really encouraging, so we are continuing to build the Electoral Reform Party so it is officially established before the next election. That might seem like a long ways away from now, but we are creating a provincial arm of the party, and I look forward to running under the Electoral Reform Party banner in the next Ontario election. Since I won't be participating in the All Candidates debate, I want to discuss some of the things I planned on talking about. In our riding of Waterloo, Bardesh Chagger of the Liberal Party is seeking re-election. If you take a look at her voting record, you'll notice she voted exactly the same way as Justin Trudeau on every single vote, except for 3 occasions when they disagreed about how to proceed with parliamentary procedure and the occasions on which Justin Trudeau was absent from Parliament. Ms. Chagger, since you always vote however the Liberal Party whip tells you to, would it be more accurate to describe you as the Liberal representative in Waterloo rather than the Waterloo representative in the Liberal Party? The interests of our riding don't seem to factor into your votes whatsoever. That might seem like pretty damning criticism, but I'm not so sure. Nobody voted for Bardesh because of who she is or what she stands for. They voted for her purely because of her party affiliation and their assessment of her party's leader. I don't believe constituents of Waterloo ever expected anything different, and I'm sure some of her supporters would be disappointed if Ms. Chagger had ever voted against her own party, even if her vote reflected the actual interests of Waterloo. This is at the heart of the issue as far as the Electoral Reform Party is concerned. Politicians are completely beholden to their party's interests rather than the interests of their constituents. It's completely backwards. If I were your member of Parliament, I would do things differently. I would hold monthly town halls so constituents could address me face to face about the issues of the day. You could put me on the spot, record me with your cell phone, upload it to YouTube, and embarrass me for everyone to see. How else are we supposed to hold our politicians accountable? Furthermore, how are constituents supposed to know how the representatives have been representing them? The quarterly partisan leaflets we receive in the mail are identical to the neighboring Liberal ridings. The only difference is the summer newsletter we received right before the election was called. If I were your MP, I would be making a weekly blog entry, vlog entry, or writing a newspaper column telling you exactly what I'd been up to as your representative. I'm not sure what the point of local representatives are if they don't represent the local interests of their riding. Our current government wouldn't function any differently if all the local reps stayed at home and the party whip voted for them by proxy. Given that there's nothing unusual about politicians being completely beholden to their party's interests, it's strange that the primary objection to mixed member proportional in Ontario was that MPPs wouldn't have an associated riding or constituents of their own to hold them accountable. Given the results of the referendum on mixed member proportional in 2007, Ontarians want local representatives to put their interests of their riding before party politics. But if you look at our politicians' voting records, it's naive to think that local interests will ever trump party politics. The Electoral Reform Party will operate differently. There will be no party whip. Instead, members of the Electoral Reform Party will be expected to put their constituents' interests first. Furthermore, the Electoral Reform Party will put forth legislation that tied Member of Parliament salaries to their local approval rating amongst their constituents in their riding. Party discipline is strict in Canada, and MPs are expected to vote with the rest of their party on all but a few designated votes. Currently, there is very little to motivate a politician to represent their constituents rather than their party. So we will continue to build the Electoral Reform Party so Canadians have a voice in Parliament alongside the voices of the major party think tanks. To join as a founding member, visit electoralreformparty.ca and fill out the PDF and mail it to the Electoral Reform Party of Canada, P.O. Box 22080, Westmount, P.O., Waterloo, Ontario. Thank you everyone for your support, and I look forward to seeing you in the next Ontario election.